Philosophers talk to our times. Thought lines of Greece. What is the most important legacy of thought the Greeks gave you? Gave all of us? For me, I think probably the most important thing is Aristotle's codification of the 4 types of cause. Aristotle says in the Physics that there are 4 ways that things can happen in this world. They can be because something is materially caused. Metal is metal. Or they could be caused by the form. Metal could be ploughs or could be swords. Or they could be caused by an efficient causation. I could be ploughing or I could throw it at you. Or it could be caused by teleology, a purpose. I've gone out to plough with this metal sharp object. I've gone out to cut with this metal sharp object. And it is this last one, teleology, that is so indispensable to the way we run our lives. Let me explain. What a teleology does is to kind of allow you to import a purpose into a seemingly random sequence of moves. More often than not, you judge them by their outcome. So a body is alive because it has a soul within it animating it to make it alive. The life itself becomes the reason for its living. And all the causes are warped around that fact. Without teleologies, you couldn't understand such things as conspiracies, or even or many notions as we commonly understand them within biology. Life is all about purposes. Animals act in a certain way because they're hungry, because they're sad, because they've got a teleology. It's almost how we define whether something is alive. So that one of the tests for AI is whether it's capable of purposeful-led activity. Now, in Aristotle's day, Aristotle, make no finer bones about it, was one of the great geniuses. And his systemization of causes really matters. That's why the idea is still potent and important to us today. He was a good biological researcher. He understood the world he lived in very well. He understood because he spent very many hours watching animals, that what made animals appear different was apparently their ability to act on purpose. And purpose fitted very neatly into his into his ontology. Purposes could be linked to forms, and of course that meant they were all male, while efficient causation were female and were linked to matter. And so he has a very bizarre to modern readings version of sexes and sexualities, all of which fits around the same basic model. And he then fits his entire philosophy around the idea of final causes, forms, material causes, and essential causes. Okay, so that's the backdrop. And it is a work of genius, and it is a work that you always have to reckon with. And yet we live in the consequences of its failure. You see, not everything can be reduced to cause. A cause, ultimately, you got it from how I set it up. I tend to think of teleological causes as backward-looking events. Aristotle is the man, after all, who solved Zeno's paradox by saying not that time exists as a continuum, and that if you are going to divide it up, you divide it into a sequence of nows. Each one of those nows is backward-looking. So time is only potentially divided. It is a continuum. It is just movement. But when you do divide it, you divide it into a first moment of having been. Aristotle's entire philosophy is always rather backward-looking. His definition of essence is that which it was to be. He uses the past tense. And teleology is no exception to that rule. It is a great backwards-looking event. You understand what has happened through their eventual effect and infer that effect backwards. Hence you get the idea that there must be a prime mover to explain the universe. A big bang, perhaps. Hence you get the idea that there must be an order that is actually put inside creation by some sort of intelligent designer, or just some sort of design, or some sort of blind watchmaker, for that matter, to explain the intricacies, The complexities, something must explain it, be it God or just a random length of DNA that was specially selected by natural selection. Doesn't really matter. The answer is always the same. There is a reason or why the order exists. Now, up until about 40 years ago, that was probably a perfectly reasonable approach. It was very difficult to understand how order spontaneously emerged. But about 40 years ago, math changed the way it understood chaos, and therefore understood order. And actually, if you get large numbers of interrelated events, one feeding off another, for instance, a landscape, an environment, a world, but for that matter, a living mind, a body, then you don't need prime causes, because the order emerges for free. Now, there is no way, I'm certainly not blaming Aristotle for not knowing that, although I would point out other Greek philosophers actually said that, but that's neither here nor there. It's not Aristotle I have the bones with, it's us. You see, we can't do without teleologies. Teleologies are important for the way we manage not just our minds, but also our ability to navigate our world beyond our minds. Let me explain. If ever you've been gripped with some sort of deep anxiety, your fight and flight is triggered, or just something, an overwhelming fear comes across you, there is a desperate desire to find a reason for it. Now that reason, in a sense, is arbitrary. This happened every time I've ever found it. I once convinced myself it was because of vampires. It is an arbitrary reason. Okay? But what it does is it encapsulates, captures, boxes up the anxiety, gives it a form that allows you to control it. To run a mind, to run a world in which fear is everywhere, bleeds into everything that we do, is spontaneously caught, for humans catch fear one to the other. You panic, I panic, the dog panics, we all panic. Means that you endlessly look for causes. And the greater the fear, the more irrational it seems, the more arbitrary the cause. Is it any wonder then, at a time of universal climate fear, that people stab around blaming immigrants, blaming this, blaming that? Desperation creates its own teleology. That teleology is, I would probably argue with my philosopher's head on, fundamentally arbitrary. But human, oh so very human. Teleologies then are the way we run our minds, irrespective of their value or their validity. More than that, teleologies are of course the way that others run their minds. Do you remember 25 years ago or so? Genes were going to change everything. We were all by now going to get our own personalised genetic profile. That would define how we would be treated. Didn't happen, did it? Why? Oh, because all the maths of chaos intervened. That's why. Genes are more like a prime mover. They define a direction in a body. But it is the endless protein cascades that follow them that actually create the body. Order is got for free. You don't need genes to do it. Or at least, that's what mathematicians would tell you. And that also explains why personalised genetic therapies were always really a non-starter. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely accept that there are genetic therapies for particular conditions that totally work and are absolutely wonderful, and well done the creator. But I don't mean that. I mean the more cosmetic versions. This will help you stop aging. This will make you look perpetually young. This will change your nose if we just tweak this gene before the baby is born. All those cod ethical decisions. Could we create designer babies? No, we couldn't, because just reality doesn't work like that. But products do. The point is that it was made commercial sense to make this argument. Because products, as they like to wrap up fears, work teleologically. And so even if we reject teleology, the marketing gurus will endlessly reinvent them, create them, make them afresh, make them anew. Teleologies matter. And they will always matter, because humans can't easily run their minds without attributing things as good and evil, cutting it off, allowing emotions to have clear boundaries, like children. And you can't do that without teleology. For me, teleological reasoning makes very little sense, unless you're going to go the full Leibniz hog and understand all of creation as absolutely teleological, including gravity. If you do that, then I could probably understand what it is doing in relation to time. Otherwise, what it is a little pocket, an arbitrary pocket of time, all folded in one to the other. It might not make much philosophical sense. It might assume an order that is actually spontaneously created or somehow already there. But emotionally, I suspect we will never do anything other than to reason teleologically. And for that understanding, the understanding of what a final cause is, we owe to the Greeks, and the Greeks alone.